Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2, Mark McGavin. We warmly welcome Air Commodore Peter McDermott, representing Air Force Association. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Ernest Gatenby Fletcher. Ernest Fletcher was born on the 12th of July, 1913 in Toowoomba, Queensland, the son of Edwin and Annie Fletcher. Growing up, he had an older sister, Mary, and a younger brother, Linley. Their mother died in 1926, and their father, a grazier in Morven, passed away in 1933. After leaving school, Ernest became station manager of the Ernest Charles Fletcher estate at Morven, running sheep and cattle. On the 9th of April 1936, he married Jessie Wilson. The couple went on to have two sons, John, born in 1937, and Robert, born in 1938. On the 9th of November 1941, Fletcher enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. He trained as an air bomber before embarking for overseas service from Melbourne on the 19th of August 1942, arriving in Canada the following month. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners, and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Fletcher underwent months of training in Canada, receiving his badge in April 1943 and being commissioned as a pilot officer the following month. He left for the United Kingdom in May 1943. Further specialist training followed in England, and that October, Fletcher was promoted to flying officer. On the 31st of March 1944, he was posted to number 463 Squadron RAAF. As part of Bomber Command, the squadron flew four-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bombers. On the night of the 4th of July 1944, Bomber Command launched a major raid on German flying bomb installations in the limestone caverns and quarries at Saint-Lô-des-Serentes in France. The plan was to collapse the roof of the caverns and disrupt surrounding roads and train tracks. 15 aircraft were committed to the mission by number 463 Squadron. Flying Officer Fletcher was the bomb aimer on board Lancaster JO-K, which took off from the Royal Air Force Base at Waddington shortly after 11 p.m. German night fighter resistance was heavy around the target, and Fletcher's aircraft was shot down, crashing near Lyon-Foret, some 80 kilometres west of the target. Killed in the crash were Flying Officers Noel Webb, Arthur Connor, and Malcolm McLeod, Warrant Officer Launcelot Harrison, Flight Sergeants Archie Gillette and Patrick Dunford, Sergeant Thomas Hendry, and Flying Officer Ernest Fletcher, who was 30 years old. The bodies of the 7 crew were recovered from the crash site and buried at RSL French National Cemetery in Beauvais. The 8th crew member was never found. Ernest's brother Linley Fletcher also enlisted in the Second World War. He served with number 43 Squadron RAAF, becoming squadron leader. Ernest Fletcher left behind a wife and 2 young sons. In 1993, his son John, driven to desperation by the drought affecting his grazing land, committed suicide. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. 3 of the crew of Lancaster JO-K could not be identified, including Ernest Fletcher. He was reinterred next to his crewmates, but has no marked grave. His name is commemorated on the memorial to the missing at Runnymede in Surrey. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Ernest Gatenby Fletcher, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, neither your years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.